Welcome to our exploration of the most terrifying new releases hitting theaters this season, where darkness and fear await the brave souls who dare to watch. This chilling collection of horror films has been generating significant buzz across social media platforms like TikTok, Twitter, and Reddit, with viewers claiming these movies have left them sleepless for days. Today, we'll dive into the story behind one particularly disturbing new release that's causing viewers to leave theaters before the ending, a phenomenon rarely seen since the days of classic horror masterpieces. Our story begins with aspiring film critic Emma Mitchell, who recently landed her dream job writing for a prestigious online entertainment magazine. At 26, Emma had always been passionate about cinema, particularly gravitating toward psychological thrillers and horror genres that challenge the mind. Her first major assignment was to attend an exclusive midnight screening of Whispers in the Dark, the latest release from enigmatic director Victor Crane, known for his unconventional storytelling techniques and mind-bending narratives. Emma arrived at the historic Majestic Theater downtown, a beautiful but somewhat dilapidated venue built in the 1920s that had survived numerous closure threats over the decades. The Majestic Theater stood tall with its ornate facade and vintage marquee, attracting a small but enthusiastic crowd of horror aficionados and film industry professionals. Emma noticed several familiar faces from the local critic circle, nodding politely as she collected her press badge and special screening materials. The theater staff seemed unusually tense that evening, with the manager personally checking each invitation and requiring attendees to sign an unusual liability waiver before entering. When Emma questioned this procedure, the manager simply smiled thinly and explained it was standard procedure for Mr. Crane's films, which only heightened her curiosity about what awaited inside the dimly lit screening room. As Emma settled into her plush velvet seat in the center row, perfect for optimal viewing, she couldn't help but notice the strange atmosphere permeating the theater. The usual pre-screening chatter was notably absent, replaced by a tense silence broken only by occasional nervous whispers. Looking around, Emma observed that several seats remained empty, despite the event being marketed as invitation only and exclusive. The theater itself seemed different somehow, with shadows that appeared deeper than usual, and an unsettling chill that persisted despite the warm spring evening outside. Victor Crane himself appeared on stage for a brief introduction, his tall, gaunt figure commanding immediate attention from the audience. Speaking in measured tones, he explained that Whispers in the Dark was unlike his previous works, as it incorporated experimental visual and audio techniques designed to create a more immersive horror experience. He mentioned collaborating with a team of psychological researchers to understand the mechanics of fear and how cinema could tap into primal human anxieties. Emma diligently took notes, intrigued by Crane's passionate description of his creative process, though she found his intense gaze somewhat disconcerting when it occasionally swept across the audience. The lights dimmed completely, plunging the theater into absolute darkness for what seemed like an uncomfortably long time before the screen flickered to life. The film began without the usual studio logos or credits, immediately immersing viewers in a scene of ordinary suburban life that felt eerily familiar yet subtly wrong in ways Emma couldn't immediately identify. The camera work was distinctive, employing unusual angles and lingering shots that made even mundane household objects appear threatening. By the 15-minute mark, Emma noticed several audience members shifting uncomfortably in their seats, while others seemed completely transfixed by the unnervingly realistic portrayal of the protagonist's gradually deteriorating mental state. The film's sound design was particularly masterful, with whispers that seemed to come from behind the audience rather than from the speakers, creating an unsettling sensation of being watched. Emma found herself repeatedly glancing over her shoulder, despite knowing it was merely a clever audio technique. About halfway through the screening, the first person abruptly left the theater, moving quickly toward the exit with pale features and shaking hands. Within the next 20 minutes, 3 more people followed, including a veteran horror director known for his own disturbing creations. Emma persisted, though her professional curiosity was increasingly mingled with genuine discomfort as the film progressed into increasingly disturbing psychological territory. The narrative took a shocking turn when the protagonist discovered a hidden door in her basement, leading to what appeared to be an alternate version of her own home, occupied by entities that resembled her family members, but were clearly something else entirely. The revelation was handled with such skillful subtlety that it took several moments for the horror to fully register with the audience. Emma felt her heartbeat accelerating as the film's carefully constructed atmosphere began affecting her physically, a testament to Crane's directorial prowess. The temperature in the theater seemed to drop further, and Emma could have sworn she felt something brush against her ankle in the darkness. What truly distinguished Whispers in the Dark from conventional horror films was its brilliant use of subliminal imagery and psychological triggers that seemed to bypass conscious processing. Emma, despite her extensive knowledge of horror techniques, found herself increasingly unsettled by content she couldn't quite process or later recall with clarity. Strange symbols appeared briefly between scene transitions, and background conversations contained phrases that seemed to directly address the viewer's deepest fears. More audience members left as the film progressed toward its climax, but Emma remained determined to experience the complete work despite her growing sense of dread. When the film finally ended, the theater remained dark for nearly a full minute before the lights gradually returned, revealing that less than half the original audience remained. Emma sat motionless in her seat, processing what she had just witnessed while trying to compose her thoughts for the review she would need to write. As people silently filed out, no one engaged in the typical post-screening discussions that usually followed such events. Outside the theater, Emma noticed several attendees making phone calls despite the late hour, their voices carrying tones of distress as they sought reassurance from loved ones. The experience had clearly transcended typical horror entertainment, leaving a lasting impression that wouldn't easily fade with the night.